The Gathering Hall of Champions stood as a monument to survival itself. Carved from the living rock of Station Apex, the chamber bore the scars of 1,000 duels, its walls marked by claw, blade, and plasma burn. Here the galaxy's most feared warriors congregated, species that had clawed their way up from worlds that actively tried to kill them. The Kravix from Threshold 9, where gravity crushed bones and storms stripped flesh from metal. The Vorath from Crimson Deep, where every plant secreted toxins and every creature hunted in packs. The Dulkeen from Shatterpoint, where the very ground exploded without warning and the air could freeze blood in seconds. Commander Zekthor of the Kravix stood at the center of the hall, his 4 arms crossed over his armored chest. His people had evolved in 12 times standard gravity, developing dense muscle and nearly unbreakable bones. They were the enforcers, the peacekeepers, the ones other species called when situations turned violent. His mandibles clicked in satisfaction as he surveyed the room. Every warrior present had earned their place through combat, survival, and the crucible of worlds that made standard planets seem like paradise. "Another cycle complete," Zekthor announced, his voice a rumble that carried through the chamber. "Another year where we have maintained order in the outer sectors. The soft-worlders continue their comfortable lives because we stand between them and chaos." A chorus of approval echoed through the hall. Growls, clicks, and guttural sounds from a dozen species that found standard galactic language too gentle for their tastes. They were the elite, the ones who laughed at danger, who had survived childhoods that would kill most sentient beings before their first year. They were the Deathworld champions. Lieutenant Vrak, a Vorath whose purple scales bore the white scars of acid burns, stepped forward. "The Council wishes to extend our patrol routes again. They want us to investigate the new species making contact at the rim." "Another species?" Zekthor's mandibles spread in what might have been a smile. "Let me guess. Soft-worlders from some garden planet who think they're ready to join galactic society?" "Unknown," Vrak replied. "They call themselves humans, from a planet designated Earth. Initial reports suggest it's a Class 7 world." The hall fell silent. Class 7 was not a Deathworld rating. The classification system ran from 1 to 10, with 10 being worlds so hostile that no known species could survive there permanently. Class 7 indicated a moderately challenging environment, dangerous wildlife, some hostile weather patterns, but nothing compared to the crucibles that had forged the warriors in this room. Threshold 9 was Class 10, Crimson Deep was Class 9. Even the weakest world represented here was Class 8. "Class 7? Someone laughed from the back. "Did they get lost on their way to the Soft-Worlder convention?" More laughter rippled through the crowd. Zekthor raised one hand for silence. "If the Council wants us to evaluate them, we evaluate them. Perhaps they have some quality that makes them useful. Even soft-worlders have their place in the galaxy." "They're requesting assignment to outer sector patrols," Vrak continued. "They claim to have military experience and want to prove themselves worthy of Deathworld contracts." This statement was met with stunned silence, then roaring laughter. Deathworld contracts were the most dangerous, highest-paying security jobs in known space. They involved protecting colonies on hostile worlds, fighting off predators that could tear through standard armor, surviving in environments that killed the careless in minutes. The idea that a Class 7 species would request such work was absurd. "By the ancestors," wheezed a Dulkeen warrior, his crystalline hide chiming as he shook with mirth. "They don't know what they're asking for. They'll die in the first hour." "Then we'll give them a chance to learn," Zekthor decided. "We'll assign them to Delta Station. If they survive a week there, we'll know they're at least somewhat capable. If not," he spread his 4 arms in a gesture of dismissal. "The galaxy has enough species. We won't miss one more that couldn't adapt." Delta Station orbited a Class 9 world called Reaper's Garden, a planet where the plant life was more aggressive than most species' apex predators. The station served as a training ground, a place where warriors from Deathworlds learned to respect environments even more hostile than their homeworlds. It was not meant to kill, but it tested every survival skill a species possessed. Many promising recruits had failed there, returning to easier assignments with their pride wounded, but their lives intact. 3 weeks later, the human ship arrived at Delta Station. Zekthor watched from the observation deck as the vessel approached. It was smaller than he expected, functional rather than impressive, with none of the heavy armor or weapons that Deathworld ships typically carried. The hull showed signs of use, scorching from atmospheric entry, small dents from micrometeorite impacts. A working ship, not a showpiece. The docking bay pressurized and the airlock cycled open. Zekthor descended to meet them, Vrock at his side, along with a dozen other warriors who wanted to see the soft-worlders who thought they could run with Deathworld champions. 5 humans emerged from the ship. They were bipedal, which was common enough, relatively small, averaging about 2 meters in height, which made them shorter than most Deathworld species. They wore simple uniforms, gray and functional, with minimal armor, no visible weapons. Their skin tones varied from pale to dark brown, and they had hair on their heads in different colors and styles. They looked soft, vulnerable, like they belonged on one of the paradise worlds where the biggest danger was sunburn. The one in front, a female with dark skin and close-cropped black hair, stepped forward and held out one hand, palm forward. "Commander Zekthor? I'm Captain Diana Foster. Thank you for having us." Zekthor stared at the hand for a moment before recognizing it as a greeting gesture. He reached out with one of his own massive appendages and carefully enclosed her hand. He could crush her bones with the slightest pressure. She gripped back firmly, not flinching at the size difference. "Captain Foster," he acknowledged, "you understand what you're requesting? Delta Station is not a soft posting. The world below has killed experienced warriors." "We understand, Commander." Her voice was steady, her eyes meeting his without fear or challenge, just calm confidence. "We're here to prove humans can handle Deathworld operations." One of the Dulkeen warriors stepped forward, his crystalline hide gleaming in the station lights. "You're from a Class 7 world. Do you even understand what that means? Our worlds tried to kill us from the moment we were born. Yours is barely more dangerous than a garden world." Another human, a male with pale skin and red hair, spoke up. His voice carried an accent Zekthor's translator struggled with. "With respect, classifications don't tell the whole story. Earth has its challenges." "Challenges?" The Dulkeen laughed. "Does your rain sometimes fall at an uncomfortable angle?" The human smiled, showing flat teeth. "Our rain is usually fine. It's the hurricanes, tornadoes, tsunamis, earthquakes, and volcanic eruptions that keep things interesting. Plus the predators. We've got a few of those." "Class 7 predators," Vrock said dismissively. "We'll show you what real predators look like." "Looking forward to it," the red-headed human replied, still smiling. Zekthor studied them more carefully. They didn't show fear, which was interesting. Most species, even Deathworld species, showed some nervousness when first arriving at Delta Station. These humans seemed relaxed, almost casual. Either they were incredibly naive, or they were confident for reasons he couldn't yet see. "Very well," he said. "You'll begin basic evaluation tomorrow. Survival scenarios, environmental adaptation, threat assessment. If you pass those, we'll consider field assignments. Commander Vrock will be your liaison. Try not to die immediately. The paperwork is tedious." Captain Foster nodded. "Understood, Commander. We'll do our best not to create extra work for you." The humans were shown to their quarters, standard accommodation blocks designed for visiting warriors. Zekthor watched them go, then turned to Vrock. "What do you think?" "I think they're overconfident," the Voreth replied. "They'll learn quickly or die quickly. Either way, we'll have our answer about humans soon enough." "Perhaps," Zekthor's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. "But did you notice? No fear scent, no elevated heart rates that I could detect. Either their biology hides stress responses, or they genuinely aren't afraid. Why would they be afraid? Another warrior asked. They don't know enough to be afraid yet. That night, in the warriors' common area, the Deathworld champions made bets on how long the humans would last. The optimistic wagers gave them 3 days. Most predicted less than 48 hours before they requested transfer to an easier station. No one bet that they would actually succeed at the trials. In their quarters, the 5 humans unpacked their gear and reviewed mission parameters. Captain Diana Foster sat on her bunk, checking her equipment with practiced efficiency. Beside her, the red-headed man, Lieutenant Jack Ryan, cleaned a blade with calm precision. "They think we're going to fail," said another team member, Sergeant Maria Santos, a stocky woman with brown skin and sharp eyes. "Of course they do," Diana replied. "On paper, we shouldn't be here. Class 7 world competing with Class 10 survivors? The math doesn't work in our favor." "But we're not here because of the math," said Corporal James Mitchell, a tall black man with a quiet voice. "We're here because the General knows what humans can do." The 5th member of the team, Private First Class Sarah Chen, a young woman with Asian features and an easy smile, laughed softly. "They're in for a surprise." Diana looked at her team, people she'd served with for 5 years, people she'd trust with her life, and had, many times. "Remember, we're not trying to prove we're better than them. We're proving we belong here. We show respect, we learn from them, but we don't back down. Understood?" "Yes, ma'am," they replied in unison. "Good, get some sleep. Tomorrow we show the galaxy what a Class 7 species can do." As the station cycled into night mode and the warriors slept in their various ways, none of them knew that their understanding of the galaxy was about to change. They didn't know that Earth's Class 7 rating was a comfortable average that hid nightmarish extremes. They didn't know that humans had evolved not as the apex predator of their world, but as the ultimate generalist, able to survive in nearly any environment their planet offered. They didn't know that humanity's greatest trait wasn't strength or speed or armor, but adaptability backed by stubborn refusal to quit. They were about to learn. The first test began at dawn, station time. Zekthor led the humans to the training dome, a massive chamber that could simulate various hostile environments. Today it was set to Threshold 9 conditions, 12 times standard gravity. Warriors trained here to build strength, to push their bodies beyond normal limits. Even Kravik's warriors found it challenging. "This is basic physical evaluation," Zekthor explained. "You'll enter the dome, cross to the far side, and retrieve the marker. It's 200 meters. In standard gravity, a simple walk. Here, most species can't stand." The gravity in the dome was enough to crush unprotected soft-worlders flat. Even with compression suits helping, most non-Deathworld species could barely move. Zekthor expected the humans to try, fail, and learn their first lesson in humility. Captain Foster stepped forward. "All of us, or one representative. Your choice." "I'll go first." She approached the dome entrance, waiting for the compression suit. Zekthor gestured to the equipment station, where protective gear waited. Foster examined the suits, then looked back at him. "Do we have to use these?" Vrock's mandibles clicked in what might have been surprise. "The gravity will kill you without protection." 12G? Foster asked. "That'll be uncomfortable, but I don't think it'll kill us. We train at higher G-forces in flight simulators. Can I try without the suit first? If I can't handle it, I'll put one on." The gathered warriors murmured among themselves. This was either bravery or stupidity. Zekthor decided to let her try. The fail-safes would stop the test if her body started shutting down. "Proceed." The dome door opened. Foster stepped through and continued walking. The gravity hit her like a physical force. Zekthor could see that. Her body compressed, her spine settling, her shoulders dropping. But she didn't fall. She took one step, then another, moving slowly but steadily. Her face showed strain, her breathing became labored, but she kept moving. The watching warriors fell silent. Foster reached the marker at the dome's center. She bent down, which should have been impossible under that gravity, and picked it up. Then she turned and walked back, each step deliberate but successful. She emerged from the dome, sweating and breathing hard, and held out the marker. That's definitely a workout, but doable. You want the rest of the team to try? Zekthor took the marker, his mind racing. She had crossed 12G gravity without compression assistance. The strain had been obvious, but she'd succeeded. That's not normal for a Class 7 species. Earth has some high G zones, Foster said, catching her breath. We train for them. Plus, our pilots regularly handle 9 or 10 Gs in combat maneuvers. 12 is pushing it, but we've got the physiology to handle it for short periods. Lieutenant Ryan stepped up. My turn? One by one, all 5 humans completed the test. Some struggled more than others, but all succeeded. By the time the last one finished, the warriors watching had stopped laughing. They hadn't stopped judging, but the casual dismissal was gone. Interesting, Zekthor admitted. You're stronger than you look, but strength isn't everything. Next test. The next chamber simulated Crimson Deep's atmospheric conditions. Toxic air, high humidity, temperature extremes. Warriors trained here by learning to identify threats through chemical sensors, to survive when their suits failed, to handle environments that killed through air composition alone. The humans entered wearing basic respirators. Within minutes, alarms began sounding. Vrock checked his scanner. Impossible. The toxin levels in there would kill most species, even with respirators. The humans should be showing signs of poisoning. But the humans continued moving through the chamber, completing their assigned tasks, seeming uncomfortable but functional. When they emerged, Lieutenant Ryan was coughing, and Sergeant Santos looked pale. But all 5 were alive and mobile. Your air sucks, Ryan said bluntly, but we've had worse. Ever been to a volcanic region during an eruption? Or a chemical plant fire? Same principle. Hold your breath when possible, filter when necessary, and keep moving. The testing continued through the day. Temperature extremes, which humans handled with surprising ease, even joking about their homeworld's various climate zones. Pressure changes, which they adapted to faster than expected. Pain tolerance tests, which they passed without complaint. Endurance trials, where they outlasted several Deathworld species before finally collapsing. By evening, Zekthor called a halt. The humans were exhausted but unbroken. Not a single one had quit or requested easier conditions. In the command center, the Deathworld champions gathered to discuss the results. They're tougher than they look, Vrock admitted grudgingly. But these are controlled tests. Real survival is different. Agreed, Zekthor said. Tomorrow, we take them to the surface. Reaper's Garden, supervised excursion. That's where most recruits fail. The environment there doesn't care about test protocols or safety measures. If they survive that, we'll have to reconsider their rating. A Dulkeen warrior, the same one who had mocked them earlier, spoke up. I volunteer to lead the surface team. I want to see how they handle real danger. Granted, Zekthor replied. But remember, the goal is evaluation, not elimination. They're here as allies, not enemies. Of course, Commander. The Dulkeen's crystalline hide clinked as he moved. I'll keep them safe, if they can keep up. In their quarters, the human team was assessing their own performance. Diana Foster sat on her bunk, stretching sore muscles. The day's tests had pushed them hard, harder than any training exercise back home. But they'd succeeded, and that was what mattered. Tomorrow's the surface expedition, she said to her team. That's where it gets real. Everything today was controlled. Tomorrow, we're in actual hostile environment. We can handle it, Mitchell said quietly. Earth prepared us. Earth prepared us for Earth, Diana corrected. This is different. Alien biology, alien chemistry, alien threats. We adapt or we fail. So we adapt, Sarah Chen said simply. That's what we do. Diana smiled. That's what we do. Get some rest. Tomorrow, We show them that humans don't quit. As the station settled into night cycle, both sides prepared for the next day's trial. The Deathworld champions expected the humans to struggle, possibly fail, certainly learn their place in the galactic hierarchy. The humans expected challenges, but believed in their training and in each other. Neither side was fully prepared for what would happen on Reaper's Garden. The planet below was about to teach everyone involved that classifications and expectations meant nothing when survival was on the line. And in the crucible of that hostile world, both humans and Deathworld champions would learn new respect for capabilities they hadn't understood before. The galaxy was about to discover that Earth might be rated Class 7 on average, but humans had evolved in a world that regularly delivered Class 10 experiences to anyone unlucky or stubborn enough to face them. Hurricanes strong enough to flatten cities, droughts lasting years, ice ages and heat waves, predators that hunted for sport, diseases that killed millions. And humans had not just survived all of it, they had thrived, spreading to every corner of their planet, adapting to every environment, refusing to accept limits. Tomorrow, Reaper's Garden would be the classroom, and the lesson would surprise everyone. The transport ship descended through Reaper's Garden's atmosphere as Station Dawn broke over the planet. Captain Diana Foster watched through the viewports as they dropped below the cloud layer. The world below was beautiful in a hostile way, all deep greens and purples, vast forests covering most of the visible surface. Beautiful and deadly. "Final equipment check," she called to her team. They were in full combat gear now, not the simple uniforms from yesterday. Body armor designed for Earth's various war zones, helmets with integrated sensors, weapons that fired chemical propellants rather than energy weapons. The Deathworld champions had questioned their equipment choices, preferring plasma and energy-based armaments. Diana had simply replied that humans trusted what worked. Beside her, the Dole-Keen expedition leader, whose name translated roughly to Kreth, loomed in his own combat suit. His crystalline hide needed no armor, and his natural weapons were more than adequate for most threats. He carried an energy rifle anyway, more out of protocol than necessity. "Once we land," Kreth said, his voice like grinding stone, "stay close." Reaper's Garden earned its name. The plants here are more dangerous than most worlds' apex predators. They move, they hunt, and they're hungry. We'll establish a perimeter, then push into the forest for 2 kilometers. If you can handle that, we'll extend the mission. "Understood," Diana replied. "What's the primary threat?" "Everything." Kreth's laugh sounded like rocks tumbling. "But especially the thornstalkers, vine-based ambush predators. They can pierce standard armor with their thorns, and their toxin causes paralysis followed by liquefaction. They feed on the result." "Cheerful," Lieutenant Ryan commented. "Anything else we should watch for?" "Acid seeders. They spray digestive enzymes from 30 meters. Pressure mines, plants that explode when stepped on. Strangler moss that gets in your breathing apparatus. Root traps that drag you underground. And those are just the stationary threats. The mobile predators are worse." Sergeant Santos raised an eyebrow. "There are mobile predators beyond the plants?" "Yes, but we rarely encounter them. The plants usually kill everything first." The transport touched down in a clearing that had been burned and sterilized repeatedly. Even so, Diana could see fresh growth already creeping in from the edges, purple vines testing the scorched ground, ready to reclaim the space. The landing ramp lowered, and the mixed team of humans and Deathworld champions prepared to exit. "Remember," Kreth said, mainly to the humans, "on my world, I am considered cautious. I survive by being careful. Follow my lead, touch nothing, and assume everything wants to kill you. Because it does." They exited the ship in formation, 3 Deathworld warriors in front, the 5 humans behind them, 2 more warriors bringing up the rear. The moment they stepped off the ramp, the forest seemed to notice them. Diana saw vines shifting, leaves turning to track their movement. The air was thick and humid, temperature somewhere around 35 degrees Celsius, and smelled like rotting vegetation mixed with something sweet and cloying. "Weapons ready," Kreth commanded. "Stay alert." They moved forward in a tight group, scanners sweeping the environment. 50 meters from the ship, the first attack came. A vine whipped out from the tree line, thorns gleaming. One of the Vorath warriors fired, his plasma rifle burning through the plant matter. The vine recoiled, smoking, and 3 more took its place. "Thorn stalkers," Kreth announced. "Standard threat, maintain fire." The Deathworld warriors opened up, plasma and energy weapons cutting through the attacking plants. Diana and her team held fire, learning, watching the patterns. The vines were fast, but not random. They struck from concealment, testing defenses, probing for weaknesses. A vine snapped toward Lieutenant Ryan. He didn't fire. Instead, he sidestepped, letting it pass, and cut through it with his combat knife as it retracted. The blade was simple steel, but adequate. The vine fell, twitching. "Conserving ammunition?" Kreth asked, his tone mocking. "Understanding the threat," Ryan replied, watching more vines approach. "They're fast, but they follow predictable patterns. They strike high, then middle, testing armor. If we know the pattern, we can avoid most strikes and only engage when necessary." "Avoid?" A Kravix warrior laughed. "You can't avoid on Reaper's Garden. You burn everything that moves, or you die." As if to punctuate this statement, another wave of vines attacked. This time, Sergeant Santos moved forward. She'd been watching, analyzing. When the vines struck, she ducked under the first, rolled left past the second, and came up firing 3-round bursts from her rifle. Chemical rounds, not energy, but effective. The vines fell. "Interesting technique," Kreth admitted. "But you're burning energy. Eventually you'll slow down, and that's when the forest kills you." "So we pace ourselves," Diana said. "When we need to burn them, we burn them. When we can avoid, we avoid. Energy management is survival." They pushed deeper into the forest. The attacks intensified. Thorn stalkers gave way to acid cedars, plants that swelled and launched gobs of corrosive enzyme. The Deathworld warriors weathered these easily, their armor designed for such threats. The humans dodged, using cover, moving constantly. Their lighter armor made them more vulnerable, but also faster. 1 kilometer in, Private Chen spotted something the others missed. "Stop," she called quietly. "Don't move forward." Kreth halted, signaling the group. "What did you see?" "The ground," Chen pointed. "Look at the depression, about 3 meters ahead. The vegetation patterns are wrong. That's a root trap." Kreth studied the area, then nodded slowly. "You're correct. Well spotted. How did you know?" "Hunting," Chen replied. "Back home we have predators that use similar techniques. They disturb the ground when they dig their traps. The vegetation grows back differently. Same principle here, just alien biology." The Dulkeen stared at her for a long moment. "You hunt on your world?" "Some of us do. Not for survival anymore mostly, but we remember the skills." They circumvented the trap and continued. The forest grew denser, darker. Bioluminescent plants provided eerie light in shades of purple and green. Strange calls echoed through the trees, sounds that didn't match any biology Diana understood. The Deathworld warriors seemed comfortable, but the humans felt increasingly like they were being watched. "Something's following us," Mitchell said quietly. "Off to the left, maintaining distance." Kreth checked his scanner. "I see nothing." "Not on scanners. I can hear it. Something large, moving carefully, matching our pace." The Dulkeen warrior's crystalline hide vibrated in what might have been concern. "If something is stalking us and my scanner can't detect it, that's very dangerous. What makes you think you can hear it?" "Human hearing developed for hunting and avoiding being hunted," Mitchell explained, not taking his eyes off the forest. "We track sound patterns, identify anomalies. There's something big out there, and it's interested in us." All weapons ready, Kreth commanded. If Mitchell is correct, we may be facing a forest hunter. They're rare this close to the clearing, but not impossible. They're ambush predators, 4 meters tall, 6 limbs, armor-plated hide that resists energy weapons. If one attacks, concentrate fire on the joints. They continued forward, tension rising. The sounds Mitchell had noted became clearer, close enough for the others to hear. Something large was definitely pacing them, staying just out of sight. Then the attack came, but not from where they expected. The forest hunter burst from the ground behind them, erupting from a tunnel with terrifying speed. It was exactly as described, massive and armored, with too many teeth and claws like swords. It targeted the rearmost warrior, a Vorath, moving too fast for him to dodge. Diana acted on instinct. Ryan, Santos, focus fire on the head. Chen, Mitchell, secure our flank. Her team moved like they drilled together for years, because they had. Ryan and Santos opened fire, their chemical rounds punching into the hunter's facial area, targeting its eyes. The creature roared and turned toward them, abandoning its first target. Kreth and the other warriors fired, plasma bolts scorching the creature's armored hide. It barely seemed to notice, its biology too dense, too protected. But the humans' solid rounds were finding gaps in the natural armor, penetrating where energy weapons couldn't. The hunter lunged toward Ryan. He dodged left, and the creature's claw tore through the space he'd occupied a moment before. Diana fired at the exposed joint, her rounds severing tendons. The limb went limp. "Keep moving," she shouted. "Don't let it grab you." The fight was chaos. The Deathworld warriors fought with power and experience, their weapons devastating when they found weak points. The humans fought with precision and mobility, moving constantly, never staying in one place, always targeting vulnerabilities. The combination was effective. Within 2 minutes, the forest hunter lay dead, its ichor pooling in the alien soil. Kreth approached the corpse, examining it. "Well fought," he said, and there was respect in his grinding voice. "You adapted quickly, used appropriate tactics. I am impressed." "Thank you," Diana replied, reloading her weapon. "Is it dead, or does it have some surprise resurrection ability?" "It's dead." Kreth's hide clinked with what might have been laughter. "But the fact that you asked shows wisdom. Some of Reaper's Garden's creatures do revive. This one won't. You've earned a moment's rest." They took defensive positions around the corpse, scanning for new threats. The forest had gone quieter after the fight, as if the other predators were reconsidering these invaders. Lieutenant Ryan examined his ammunition supply. "We're at 60%. Still good, but we need to be mindful." "The ship is 1 kilometer behind us," Kreth said. "We can return now if you wish. You've proven more capable than expected. There's no shame in a tactical withdrawal." Diana looked at her team, reading their expressions. They were tired but functional. More importantly, they weren't ready to quit. She turned back to Kreth. "We came to complete 2 kilometers. We're halfway. I say we finish the mission." The Dulkeen studied her for a long moment, his crystalline facets reflecting the bioluminescent light. "Very well, but understand the forest gets worse from here. This was the easy part." They pushed forward. Kreth wasn't exaggerating. The vegetation grew more aggressive, the attacks more frequent. They encountered strangler moss, which Private Chen nearly inhaled before her helmet filters caught it. Pressure mines that Sergeant Santos detected by the subtle differences in how the ground compressed under her boots. Acid cedars that Mitchell spotted before they could fire, their swollen pods distinctive once you knew what to look for. The Deathworld warriors began deferring to the humans for certain observations. When Kreth couldn't determine if a path was safe, he asked Diana's opinion. When a Kravix warrior was about to step into a trap, Ryan grabbed his arm and pulled him back. The dynamic was shifting. The humans weren't just surviving, they were contributing, bringing different skills, different perspectives. At the 2 kilometer mark, They reached a small plateau overlooking a valley of purple vegetation. The view was stunning and terrible, a landscape that seemed designed to kill anything that entered it. "Mission complete," Kreth announced. "You've matched what experienced warriors accomplish on their first expedition. I did not expect this." "We had good teachers," Diana said diplomatically, "and we learned from watching you handle threats." "Perhaps," Kreth's tone was thoughtful, "but you also brought skills we didn't expect. Your awareness, your adaptation speed, your coordination as a team. These are not Class 7 traits." Lieutenant Ryan spoke up. "Maybe the classification system doesn't capture everything. Earth isn't as immediately hostile as your worlds, but it has taught us to be flexible. We've dealt with a huge variety of dangers. Not constant danger like you face, but varied danger. That might make us better at adapting to new threats." "An interesting theory," Kreth replied. "One I would like to test further." The return trip was faster. Now that they knew what to watch for, the threats seemed less overwhelming. They reached the ship with only minor injuries, mostly scratches and bruises. As they boarded, Diana noticed the Deathworld warriors looking at her team differently. Not with mockery or dismissal, but with consideration. Maybe even the beginnings of respect. Back at Delta Station, Commander Zekthor waited in the docking bay. His four arms were crossed, his mandibles clicking in thought as the expedition team disembarked. "Report," he commanded. Kreth stepped forward. "The humans performed adequately. They survived, contributed to the team's success, and showed acceptable adaptation to threat environments." "Adequately?" Zekthor's tone suggested he heard more in that assessment than the words conveyed. "They killed a forest hunter," Kreth admitted. "They detected traps I missed. They moved through Reaper's garden like they'd trained there for months. It was more than adequate. It was impressive." Murmurs spread through the gathered warriors. A Class 7 species impressing a Dokeen survivor from Shatterpoint was noteworthy. Zekthor turned to Diana. "Captain Foster, your assessment of the mission?" "Successful, Commander. We completed the assigned objectives, learned valuable lessons from our guides, and look forward to additional training." "Additional training?" Zekthor's mandibles spread. "You want more?" "Sir, we came here to prove humans can handle Deathworld operations. One successful mission isn't proof. We need to demonstrate consistent capability." "Ambitious." Zekthor studied the 5 humans, reevaluating what he saw. They were still small, still looked soft compared to the warriors around them. But they'd survived Reaper's Garden on their first attempt. That meant something. "Very well, you'll continue training. Tomorrow, environmental adaptation exercises, then combat scenarios, then perhaps another surface mission. If you continue to perform, we'll discuss actual Deathworld contracts." "Thank you, Commander." As the humans left the docking bay, Zekthor turned to his senior warriors. "Opinions?" "They're tougher than they look," Vrok said. "But one mission isn't enough data." "Agreed," Kreth added. "But I've fought on dozens of Deathworlds, trained hundreds of warriors. These humans move differently. They think differently. They see patterns and dangers we miss. Not because we're incompetent, but because their experience base is different. Diverse. They've adapted to variety rather than specializing for one extreme environment." "A generalist approach," Zekthor mused. "Interesting. Most Deathworld species specialize. We evolve for specific hostile conditions. But humans evolve for, what? Average conditions that sometimes become extreme?" "Perhaps," Kreth replied. "Or perhaps Earth is more dangerous than its Class 7 rating suggests, just dangerous in different ways." "Then we need to understand their homeworld better," Zekthor decided. "Request all available data on Earth from the Council. Climate, geography, predators, historical challenges. If we're going to properly evaluate these humans, we need to understand what shaped them." The request went out through standard channels. 3 days later, the response arrived, and when Zekthor reviewed the data in his command center, his mandibles fell open in shock. Earth's classification as Class 7 was an average, the key word being average. The planet had zones that ranged from Class 2 to Class 10, depending on location and season. Tropical regions with hurricanes that made Threshold 9's storms look tame. Polar regions where temperatures dropped low enough to freeze most known species solid in minutes. Deserts where the heat could cook flesh. Oceans covering 70% of the surface, filled with predators ranging from microscopic parasites to creatures massing hundreds of tons. But that wasn't what shocked him most. What shocked him was the predator analysis. Earth had thousands of predator species, thousands, from microscopic bacteria and viruses that killed millions of humans before medical science caught up, to insects that spread diseases, to reptiles that could swallow prey whole, to mammals that hunted in packs with sophisticated strategies. And humans weren't even the apex predator of their world. They'd competed with and eventually outlasted dozens of other apex predators, not through superior strength or armor or natural weapons, but through intelligence, tools, cooperation, and sheer stubborn refusal to go extinct. By the ancestors, Zekthor breathed, they evolved as prey. Vrock looked up from his own terminal, where he was reviewing the same data. Prey species don't make good warriors, don't they? Zekthor pulled up more information. Look at their evolutionary history. They were prey for millions of years. They learned to track predators by sound, by smell, by disturbed vegetation. They learned to spot ambush points, to recognize danger patterns. They developed complex communication to warn each other of threats. They created weapons to compensate for physical limitations. And when they finally became hunters themselves, they brought all those prey species skills with them. A hunter with a prey species skill set, Kreth said slowly, joining the conversation. That explains what I saw on Reaper's Garden. They noticed threats because they evolved to notice threats. Their entire species was shaped by constant vigilance. Zekthor continued reading, his fascination growing. Humans had spread across their entire planet, adapting to every environment. They lived in frozen Arctic zones, baking deserts, high mountains, deep forests, vast grasslands, isolated islands. They'd faced ice ages, droughts, floods, plagues, and predators, and they'd survived it all. Not by being the strongest or the fastest or the most armored, but by being adaptable, by learning, by persisting. There's more, Vrock said, his voice subdued. Look at their recent history, their warfare. The data was sobering. Humans had fought each other with a dedication that bordered on insanity. Wars spanning years, decades, involving millions of combatants. They developed weapons of astonishing sophistication and terrible effectiveness. They'd bombed cities, waged guerrilla campaigns, fought in every environment their planet offered. And they'd learned from every conflict, building a body of tactical and strategic knowledge that was genuinely impressive. They've been at war with each other for their entire recorded history, Zekthor said. Constant conflict, constant adaptation. No wonder they perform well under pressure. They've been training for this for thousands of years. But they're from a Class 7 world, Vrock protested weakly. No, Zekthor corrected. They're from a world that averages Class 7, but regularly delivers Class 10 experiences. They evolved as prey, became hunters, fought each other for millennia, and spread across every hostile environment their planet offered. The classification system failed to capture what they really are. And what are they? Kreth asked. Zekthor looked at the data one more time, synthesizing what he saw. Survivors, ultimate survivors, not specialists like us, but generalists who can handle anything because they've already handled everything their world could throw at them. The implications were staggering. If humans could perform this well after just days of training, what could they do with months, years? What if there were millions of them, trained and equipped and organized? We need to accelerate their evaluation, Zekthor decided. Push them harder, test their limits, because if humans are what this data suggests, the galaxy needs to know about it. They could be valuable allies. Or dangerous enemies, Vrock added quietly. Yes, Zekthor agreed. That too. Over the following weeks, the human team was pushed through increasingly difficult scenarios. Zero-gravity combat, underwater operations, toxic atmosphere survival, extreme temperature endurance, psychological stress tests, each test designed to find their breaking point. They didn't break. Oh, they struggled. They got tired, hurt, frustrated, but they adapted, learned, persisted. When a test defeated them, they analyzed why, adjusted their approach, and tried again. The Deathworld warriors watching began to recognize something familiar in the humans' attitude. It was the same stubborn refusal to quit that defined Deathworld survivors. The same determination that came from growing up in places that killed the weak and unlucky. But the humans had something extra. Where Deathworld species specialized, humans generalized. Where a Kravix excelled in high gravity and a Vorath in toxic environments, humans performed adequately in both. They weren't the best at anything specific, but they were competent at everything. It's frustrating, Kreth admitted to Zekthor after one training session. I'm stronger than them, tougher, more experienced, but in a mixed environment test, they match my performance. How? Because you're optimized for Shatterpoint, Zekthor replied. Extreme conditions, but specific extreme conditions. Humans are optimized for variability. They expect the unexpected. It makes them less dominant in any one environment, but more flexible across all environments. Is flexibility better than specialization? In some contexts, yes. Imagine a Deathworld contract where conditions change rapidly, where one day you're in Arctic cold, the next in desert heat, then underwater, then in toxic zones. A human team could handle all of those sequentially. Most of our warriors would struggle. The breakthrough came during a complex simulation designed to test command decisions under pressure. The scenario involved protecting a colony during a multi-threat crisis. Environmental disaster, predator attack, equipment failure, and civilian panic. Standard Deathworld contract situation, but compressed into 2 hours of chaos. Diana's team was tested alongside a veteran Kravix squad. The Kravix performed admirably, using their superior strength and experience to handle each threat as it arose. They were efficient, effective, and saved 90% of the simulated civilians. The human team saved 98%. The difference came down to approach. The Kravix handled each threat sequentially with overwhelming force. The humans multitasked, divided responsibilities, and adapted tactics on the fly. When the environmental disaster struck, they'd already positioned equipment to handle it while simultaneously corralling civilians and setting ambush points for the predators. They were always thinking 3 steps ahead, anticipating, preparing. It's the warfare, Diana explained when Zekthor asked her how they'd achieved such results. Human military doctrine emphasizes flexibility, initiative, and decentralized command. We train our people to think, not just follow orders. When a situation changes, we adapt immediately. It's survival skill from thousands of years of fighting each other in constantly changing conditions. You learn this from fighting your own species? Yes, sir. Wars teach hard lessons. We've learned them all, many times over. Zekthor made his decision that night. He called a full assembly of the warriors at Delta Station, every Deathworld champion present, and he brought the human team before them. Warriors, he began, his voice carrying through the hall. 6 weeks ago, I would have told you that a Class 7 species had no place among us. I would have been wrong. He gestured to the humans. These 5 have passed every test we've given them. They've survived Reaper's Garden, completed extreme environment training, and matched veteran warriors in combat simulations. More importantly, they've taught us something. We've been judging species by their world's rating, assuming that higher class means better warriors. But we've been missing a critical factor: Adaptability. Murmurs ran through the crowd. Zekthor raised a hand for silence. Humans come from a world that is many worlds. Their planet has extreme zones and temperate zones, deadly predators and docile prey, frozen poles and burning deserts. They evolved not to dominate one environment, but to survive in all environments. And when they encountered challenges they couldn't survive through biology, they used intelligence, tools, and cooperation. He looked at Diana and her team. They are not specialists like us. They are generalists. But in many situations, generalists are exactly what's needed. I propose we grant these humans full warrior status and approve them for Deathworld contracts. The hall erupted in debate. Some warriors agreed immediately. Others protested that tradition demanded more time, more tests. The arguments grew heated, voices raised in a dozen languages and dialects. Finally, Kreth stepped forward, his crystalline hide catching the light. "I've fought beside these humans on Reaper's Garden. I've trained with them every day since. I say they've earned their place, not because they're as strong as Kravix or as tough as Vorath, but because they bring different strengths, intelligence, adaptability, and ability to see threats we miss. I vote to accept them." One by one, other warriors added their voices. Vrak, the Dolkeen who'd mocked them on the first day, even some who'd bet against them. The tide turned. "Then it's decided," Zekthor announced. "Humans are approved for Deathworld operations. Captain Foster, your team is officially granted warrior status." Diana stood straighter, her team behind her. "Thank you, Commander. We won't disappoint you." "See that you don't," Zekthor replied, but his tone was warm. "You've proven that Earth might be classified as Class 7, but humans are capable of much more. I suspect the galaxy will be learning a lot about your species in the coming years." "We hope so, sir. We have a lot to offer." "And a lot to learn," Kreth added, approaching the humans. "I would be honored to serve with you on future contracts." "The honor would be ours," Diana replied. The celebration that followed was subdued by Deathworld standards, which meant it was loud, boisterous, and involved competitions of strength, speed, and endurance. The humans participated, not winning everything, but holding their own, earning more respect with every contest. Stories were shared, experiences traded, and by the end of the night, the divide between Deathworld champions and humans had blurred. In the quiet hours before station dawn, Diana stood at an observation window, looking down at Reaper's Garden. Behind her, Lieutenant Ryan approached, 2 drinks in hand. "Couldn't sleep?" he asked, offering her one. "Just thinking," she replied, accepting the drink, "about how close we came to failing, about how lucky we got." "It wasn't luck," Ryan said firmly. "It was training, skill, and refusal to quit. Everything Earth taught us." "Maybe," Diana sipped her drink. "But Ryan, did you feel it down there? On the planet? That moment when everything clicked, when we stopped being visitors and started being survivors?" "Yeah, I felt it. That's what the commander meant. We're not just soldiers from a moderate planet. We're survivors from a world that regularly tried to kill our ancestors. That never goes away. It's coded into us. The vigilance, the adaptability, the stubbornness. We carry Earth's lessons in our bones." Ryan nodded slowly. "So when he called us ultimate survivors, he understood. We didn't just pass their tests. We showed them what Earth creates. What a Class 7 world that spans Class 2 to Class 10 produces. We're proof that average conditions with extreme variations create something special." "Are we going to tell them about hurricanes?" Ryan asked with a slight grin. "About how Category 5 storms are just really bad weather to us?" "Eventually," Diana smiled back. "Let them discover it gradually. Earth has a lot of surprises. No need to reveal everything at once." They stood together in comfortable silence, watching the hostile world rotate below. Somewhere down there, creatures that would terrify most sentient beings were hunting, surviving, adapting. Just like Earth's creatures did. Just like humans had always done. The next morning, Zekthor summoned Diana to his office. She entered to find him reviewing data on multiple screens, his forearms manipulating controls with practiced efficiency. "Captain Foster," he greeted, "I've received your first contract offer. Interested?" "Absolutely, sir. What's the job?" "Colony protection on a Class 8 world called Razor Peak. Seismic instability, hostile fauna, extreme temperature swings. The colonists are having trouble, and the current security team is requesting reinforcement. It's a 6-month contract." Diana reviewed the details on the offered datapad. Razor Peak looked challenging, exactly the kind of mission that would test everything they'd learned. "My team and I accept." "You haven't consulted them." "I don't need to. We came here together, we train together, we fight together. If I accept, they accept." Zekthor's mandibles clicked in approval. "Good, but you won't be going alone. Kreth has volunteered to accompany you, along with 2 Kravix warriors, a mixed team. Human adaptability combined with Deathworld strength and experience. We'd welcome their presence." "I thought you might." Zekthor leaned back, studying her with his compound eyes. "Captain, be honest with me. How many humans are there on Earth?" "Approximately 8 billion, sir." The number hung in the air. 8 billion. 8 billion humans, each carrying the same adaptability, the same survival instinct, the same stubborn refusal to quit. 8 billion, Zekthor repeated quietly. "And you're just now joining the galactic community?" "We've been busy with our own affairs, but yes, we're ready now to contribute to galactic society." "The galaxy isn't ready for you," Zekthor said, and there was something like awe in his voice. 8 billion survivors from a death world in disguise. Do you know what that means?" "Sir?" "It means everything is about to change. The Death World champions have dominated security contracts for centuries because we're the toughest, the strongest, the most resilient. But we number in the millions across all species combined. You number in the billions, and you've proven you can match us." "We don't want to replace you," Diana said carefully. "We want to work with you, learn from you. We're new to this galaxy. We need guides, mentors, allies." "And you'll have them," Zekthor assured her. "But make no mistake, Captain. Within a generation, humans will reshape galactic security operations. Your adaptability, combined with your numbers and your industrial capacity, will make you indispensable. The question is, what you'll do with that influence." Diana met his gaze steadily. "We'll do what we've always done, Commander. We'll survive. We'll adapt. We'll protect those who need protecting. Earth taught us to be stubborn survivors. Our history taught us the costs of conflict. We don't want to dominate. We want to contribute." "I believe you," Zekthor said, "but intentions and outcomes don't always align. Remember this conversation, Captain Foster. When humans fill the ranks of Deathworld security forces, when you're taking contracts away from species who have no other options, when your influence grows beyond what you anticipated, remember what you said today." "I will, sir." "Good." His tone lightened. "Now go prepare your team. You ship out to Razor Peak in 3 days. Show them what humans can do." Diana saluted and left, her mind racing. Zekthor's warning echoed in her thoughts. He was right, of course. Humans were about to change everything. Not because they were trying to, but simply because of what they were. 8 billion adaptable, stubborn survivors, each one shaped by a world that regularly delivered Deathworld experiences disguised as weather or natural disasters or wildlife. She found her team in the training dome running drills. They stopped when she entered, reading the news in her expression. "We got the contract?" Ryan asked. "We got the contract. Class 8 world, 6 months, full Deathworld pay scale. Plus, we've got backup. Kreth and 2 Kravix warriors will be joining us." "A mixed team," Santos said, grinning. "I like it." "There's more," Diana added. "The commander made me think about something. We're not just 5 humans anymore. We're the the proof of concept. If we succeed, more humans will follow, eventually thousands, maybe millions. We're not just representing ourselves, we're representing Earth. Mitchell nodded slowly. No pressure then. Actually, yes, enormous pressure. Diana looked at each of them. But we've handled pressure before. That's what we do. That's what Earth taught us. So we go to Razor Peak, we do the job, we come back alive, and we prove that humans belong among the Deathworld champions. And then, Chen asked, and then we do it again, and again, until the galaxy accepts that Class 7 doesn't define us, until they understand that humans are survivors, not because of our world's rating, but because of what we carry inside us. The lessons of Earth. The stubbornness of a species that refused to go extinct. The adaptability of people who can live anywhere, survive anything. The galaxy won't know what hit them, Ryan said with a grin. No, Diana agreed. They won't. But they'll learn. Just like the warriors here learned. Just like every Deathworld champion who ever doubted us learned. Humans don't quit. We adapt. We survive. We overcome. That's who we are. She raised her hand and her team placed theirs on top. A gesture of unity they'd learned in basic training years ago. For Earth, she said. For Earth, they repeated. 3 days later, the transport ship carrying the mixed team departed Delta Station, bound for Razor Peak. In the cargo hold, human equipment sat beside Deathworld weapons, different technologies for different approaches. In the crew quarters, humans and alien warriors reviewed mission parameters together, learning each other's languages and methods. And on Delta Station, Commander Zekthor watched them go, his mind full of possibilities and concerns. The humans had proven themselves, yes, but proving themselves and reshaping galactic society were two different things. Time would tell if Diana Foster's intentions could withstand the pressure of success. Below him, Reaper's Garden rotated in its orbit, beautiful and deadly. A Class 9 death world that had tested humanity and found them worthy. But the galaxy held many such worlds, many such tests. The real question wasn't whether humans could survive individual challenges. The real question was whether they could maintain their values, their perspective, their humanity while doing so. Zekthor suspected they could. They'd survived Earth, after all, a world that was simultaneously garden paradise and death world hell, depending on where you stood and what season it was. They'd evolved not as conquerors, but as survivors, not as specialists, but as generalists. They'd learned to cooperate, to adapt, to persist. The galaxy was about to learn what that meant. The Deathworld champions had thought they were apex predators, the toughest beings in known space. Then the Earthlings had arrived, from their Class 7 world that wasn't really Class 7 at all, and everything had changed. Not through dominance or conquest, but through simple, stubborn competence. Through adaptability backed by refusal to quit. Through skills learned over millions of years of surviving everything their planet could throw at them. The galaxy would adjust. Alliances would shift. Power structures would change. But through it all, humans would persist, adapt, and survive. Because that's what Earth had taught them. That's what they were. Deathworld champions in disguise, wearing the label of Class 7 like camouflage. And now the galaxy knew the truth. Humanity had arrived, and nothing would ever be quite the same.